Welcome story lovers to Chapter 8. Please consider liking and subscribing. Marnie's mind was empty, and her inner voice mute as she immersed herself in the new sensations of flying beneath the glinting skin of the broad river. Conran proudly led her towards an exhibition of ancient art. They swam amongst the shady forest of weeds which grew up from the gravelly bed, and through cloisters, eerily out of place, submerged in water until they reached the entrance to a cave carved into the rocky cliff. Conran guided her around statues of idealistic men and women in various poses from their daily lives, as well as standing stones. The water didn't reach the ceiling, so Marnie was able to drift using her snorkel and to examine the objects more closely. She stood on boulders or dived down. She scrutinised the smudged-out faces of ancient people, ran her fingers around the spiral decorations of the undecipherable words, and chased fish darting between the vast structures. The whole place was mesmerising, a vision of beauty hidden in the most surprising of places. Conran took her elbow and floated her towards the wall. To her amazement, the whole surface had been carved into polygonal shapes, a pattern which appeared strangely modern. It was inspiring to be surrounded by the art of people who wanted to shout their stories, whether good or bad. Few people want to speak out or share their lives these days, Marnie sadly considered. Refreshed in body and soul, they climbed out onto the riverbank, peeled off their wetsuits and smiled at each other as the cool water dripped from their hair. They dried off, and Marnie thought about what she'd seen. There was no writing as we know it, but many symbols, she said, hungry with curiosity about such a cultivated society not known anywhere else during that period when mega-mammals still walked the earth. Did they build it deliberately underwater, or was it on land, or was it submerged due to disaster? I'm not sure. It's mystifying, but did you see the many images of a giant serpent? Marnie nodded her response. It's depicted with waves around it as though it were in the water. I think it could have been a god which lived in the river, and the temple was built in its honour to please it. There were also pictures of figures beneath the surface, and I think the river was where the spirits of their ancestors resided, and where they communed with their dead. You mean the river belongs to a serpent god, and if he was kept happy, they would be able to talk with their ancestors and gain knowledge. Something like that. Rivers and rocks were incredibly important to ancient peoples. Conran took a blanket from his bag, and in the midday pause they stretched out on the shorter grass languishing beneath the sun. They must have taken lots of hallucinogens to see monsters and talk to the dead, Marnie uttered half seriously. Many ancient peoples did as they underwent rites and rituals, Conran said drowsily. Perhaps it truly altered their perception and helped them discover the insights we've lost. Marnie put her sunglasses on, shut her eyes, and allowed her mind to drift. The immersive experience of the enigmatic underwater site left her relaxed. Random thoughts and memories dropped and dribbled away. It was good wasting the hours in unimportant dreaming, separated and removed from her work and everyday existence. Listening to the doves cooing, an intrusive memory splashed into Marnie's mind of Tem washed, and with his whiskers neatly trimmed after his shower, standing thin and handsome in her kitchen. There was a look of alarm in his eyes. "You do have an intruder," he said. "I heard a nasty voice accusing you of stealing a precious gem and threatening all kinds of horrors if it wasn't returned." Marnie hadn't wanted to explain anything to Tem, and was relieved when he finally left. Ever since the voice had continued to apply pressure, jumping her out of her peace. Each time its speech was harder to discern, and was increasingly breathless and desperate for her to act. She half hoped whoever was involved was dying and would soon disappear. After some time, Conran sighed and sat up. Marnie echoed his movements. She'd never seen a man's naked chest except for the statues, and her eyes were instantly drawn to the muscle-covered forest of hair, heaving in the clean air and the tops of his muscular arms. It was a delicious and thrilling sight. She watched as he rose, walked to the water's edge, bent, sipped the clear liquid from his cupped hands, and splashed his face and the top half of his body. Pearly water droplets streamed in all directions as he shook his mane. He strolled back, smiling happily and itching his arms. "What's wrong?" she tentatively asked. "I keep seeing you scratching. Sun allergy. Or fleas from the tree, it's nothing." You should get it looked at. Rashes can be dangerous. Come on, Miss Paranoid. I want to show you where we found the jewel in the crown, he said, reaching out with his hand and pulling her to her feet. Grasshoppers jumped out of their way, as together they walked through the golden discs of dandelions and primroses and into the long golden grass dappled with the clumps of bluebells and startling yellow celandines. Marnie strolled with Conran past the hedges full of the magic murmurings of life, under a ceiling of interwoven fingers with their jigsaw shapes of blue. It was on that day Marnie learnt where happiness lay. Nature was the fragrance, taste and feel of freedom, a pleasure beyond anything she'd experienced. Here she could escape the smooth surfaces of her home, where germs congregated. She was even able to tolerate the flies. They reached a clearing and were struck by a sudden brightness. In the centre, a magnificent oak stretched out, blocking the sky, and at the base of the trunk was a round boulder. "This is the place where we found the princess," Conran said proudly. "Where?" Marnie said, looking around for disturbed earth. "In the tree," he added. "Do you see how the trunk bulges in the middle?" We believe the trunk was hollow. She was somehow placed inside, and the boulder blocked the entrance. After that, its flesh grew around her, but not into her body. She was encased in a cavity, a womb perfectly preserved with fleas incubating in the folds of her clothes. Like when an alien object under your skin is covered in scar tissue. Everything was intact, even the grave goods. "Wow, that's amazing," Marnie said, uneasily aware she was observing a grave. "Didn't it make you feel sad?" "No. Whoever placed her there did it with love. Jewels were found. A flute, a comb, and a longbow with arrows," he added, squeezing Marnie's hand reassuringly. "I dig the earth searching, and what I find is evidence of people who treated their own with dignity and respect, and who were not fearful of death. What was important was their reputation and the memories they left behind. The fascination for stories of their ancestors remained through the generations, and she will be remembered today." "It might have been a sacrifice," Marnie said. "In my experience, people are not kind." "There's nothing to indicate she suffered a sinister end." Conran gazed fondly at the tree. "You saw their artwork. They were trying to reach out to the future, so that they would not be forgotten in a few generations. I suppose that's why my archaeology gives me hope." "You're so idealistic," Marnie said. "The fate of these people was probably not good. Time or disaster shifted everything, so their temple was lost beneath the water. Earth has always cleansed itself through extinctions. It's a natural process." "A cruel and painful one," Marnie added. "Through archaeology, I've learnt to live with a new understanding healing. We look for pieces and find a whole. It isn't about us, it's about the survival of the entire planet. Realising that is what sets you free from fear. All civilizations eventually disappear in the flicker of an eye." Conran wrapped his arm around Marnie's waist and pulled her in for a kiss. The day could only get better, Marnie thought. Thank you for joining me on another chapter of our journey. You can find my books in all your favourite online stores and in Audible under EMG Wixley.